If you don't know Jordan, I got to know Jordan through Chris Hanegi. We do the Social Engineer podcast together, and Jordan came on, and I remember when Chris was like, hey, we're having Jordan on to do this podcast. He was a huge hit, the way that he talked and what he did as a living. And Jordan's an interesting one because he didn't, he's not a security guy. But he has become part of us is what he does because he deals with human behavior on a regular basis and how to interact with people. And for us, that's one of the biggest challenges I think that we have is that human interaction piece, the social engineering pieces that we do. And Jordan's one of the best that I've ever seen. So he became a member on the Social Engineer podcast. I think we're up to number 14, aren't we, Chris? We're on the Social Engineer podcast. The Social Engineer podcast number 14 is what we're up to now. 14. Okay, we're at 14, not 74. And so Jordan came in and really brought a lot of life to the podcast, and we became good friends. And the first time I met Jordan was at Black Hat. And him and I were just, I think it was at we had breakfast, I think, with Ping and a few others that were sitting there. And I got to meet Jordan, and just a phenomenal person. And I just wanted him to be here at the keynote to listen to what he has to say because I really respect Jordan, what he does, and everything that he does for the community. And coming in from kind of the outside in, he's been a valuable asset to the InfoSec industry. So I'd like to welcome Jordan here and kick it off with him. So let's give a round of applause and a warm Derbycon welcome.
Wow, that was fast. I saw that. Oh, that is warm. Holy cow. All right. One sec. First things first. As fast as possible, is that the move? Oh, that's about as bad as it gets. Oh. Wow. All right. Thanks for that. Appreciate that. Remind me to thank you for that later. Holy cow. Who was here for my Derbycon presentation a couple years ago about social engineering? It was loaded with visuals, really well rehearsed. This presentation is nothing like that presentation, as far as I know. Now, one of the things I noticed right when I got here was that this is about community. The theme is unity. And I like that because at first I thought, I'm not technical. I don't know anything in the tech field well enough. I can barely even fix my own email client on my friggin' iPhone. I got a guy for that, right? But what I can tell you is about relationship development and connections. And I thought, all right, I've got a talk that I can run based on this because one of the chief things that we deal with at The Art of Charm is connection, and we get a lot of email from people in this field. The tech field, the InfoSec field, seems to be a field where a lot of folks find it really comfortable in a cubicle alone by themselves working on a computer into the wee hours, but not a lot of people feel comfortable interacting with other humans, which I find really ironic, especially in the security field, which is based around largely human behavior and human mistakes, which we focus on a lot on the Social Engineer podcast. Now, for me, a lot of folks think, well, this comes naturally to you, so why should I even listen to you? You're a different type of person than me. And when I was a kid, I was so painfully shy, I could barely deal with it. If you told me just a few years ago that I'd be standing on a stage in front of, what are we at, 2,200 people, minus those that slept in, I would never have believed you. A stage like this, from people with all over the world, I never would have believed you. Now, when I was really young, I found myself with a brand new computer that had the internet. It was black and white. It was called Gopher. Some of you probably remember that. Or at least that's what I thought the internet was. It's right in the dawn of America Online as my internet provider, which my parents had until last year. And I realize, by the way, most of you are just killing time before HD more, so if you want to whip out Candy Crush, I'm not going to be offended. And at first, what I'm going to tell you might seem totally irrelevant to you and even to your industry. But today I want you to challenge these assumptions. Because if you willfully ignore this skill set, you're willfully ignoring, honestly, you're willfully ignorant of the secret game being played around you. Now, like I said, painful shyness as a kid, something probably a lot of us can relate to. Even now, for some of us. And I used to skip school and run home and play on the internet, or a gopher, or whatever that was, right? And it wasn't the cool kind of skipping school where you're on parade floats, singing, and going to fancy restaurants like Ferris Bueller. This is the kind of skipping school where your parents come home at 5 p.m. and they find you sharing DCC files on IRC in your underwear. Now, before I forget, there's a slide with this challenge on it. It's the only visual I have, so it'll be up for the whole time. This is a challenge to get people out of their shell. That's you guys, and myself for that matter. I've got 30 days of drills and exercises. They're progressively harder, but they start off really easy. That get you meeting other folks, connecting them to each other, and developing more solid relationships as a result. I highly encourage you to do this. I don't think we're going to spam you. If we do, you can blame this guy right here with the DSLR in the front row. That's Jason. He's the guy I got to pin blame on for pretty much everything. Now, this school thing wasn't working for me. This system was not working for me at all. I knew that I was just 2 days of school away from failing out of friggin' middle school. Who fails middle school? Because they're on the internet. Nobody even knew what that was. I got in trouble with the FBI back then. That's another story that I probably told on Chris's podcast. I got in trouble with the police a bunch, not for anything cool. I ordered pizza for my whole school on a credit card that I made up, which is why they couldn't find the owner. And that confounded the police to no end. They literally had to call the FBI. So after a really successful middle school career, I started to figure some stuff out socially, but not really, right? I got a haircut and took showers. That was like my major first step towards being cool and popular. And it had limited success. And when I went to college, my friends were successful people too. They were all smart. They were like everybody here in this room. Really intelligent, going places. Some went to Wall Street. Some went to work for America Online, which was still a thing in 1997. But I needed some time to figure this stuff out. I had no idea what the hell I was going to do. So one day I got up bright and early, about 2 p.m. for a college kid, and I went to Best Buy, and I needed a new Walkman. And I was talking with a guy that worked there, and he said, look, man, why don't you just work here for a while till you figure out what you want to do? You know a lot about this stuff. And I said, great. I'm going to repair computers, help people fix their modems. The new 28Ks are coming out. Can definitely hustle some of those. And he said, whoa, slow your roll here, buddy. You need to sell some CDs for a few years before you can move up to customer service and computer repair. So I saw my bright future go down the tubes in front of a life-size cutout of Britney Spears. So that system was clearly still not working for me at all. Backed against the wall with no employment options whatsoever, couldn't even get a job at Best Buy, even with a college degree from the University of Michigan, I did what a lot of guys do when they have no future opportunity, and I became a lawyer. Yay! Somebody's like, oh, that hits too close to home. And I got a job on Wall Street, which was awesome. Some of my friends were already there. I actually got the job through a connection, through my old roommate's old roommate. What are the odds? And when I got hired there, this guy who hired me, coincidentally also named Dave, he was a special breed. He was cool. I'd never met anybody who was cool and an adult. It was kind of awesome. And when he was hiring me, he was throwing this football around in his office and telling me how great it was to work at the firm and how we were going to do all this amazing stuff and this interesting work that I didn't understand at all at the time. And I took the job. And then I went there that first summer, and he was my mentor, right? Like, Wolf of Wall Street, oyster shooters on the roof with Matthew McConaughey. Only I never saw him ever and never did any oyster shooters ever anywhere on any roof, anywhere in New York. And HR, of course, was the one who assigned him to be my mentor, and he hated that idea. That was just repugnantly poisonous to him. Like, I got to hang around with this guy. And so they asked me one day in the middle of summer, how's your mentorship program going? And I said, oh, it sucks. I haven't seen my mentor, Dave, in like 2 months. And everybody else is drinking, eating, going to see Blue Man Group. I want to see Blue Man Group. Dave doesn't even show up to the office. So they make Dave take me out for coffee. That's, by the way, a terrible way to get ahead at work. Tell HR that your boss sucks. Not recommended. So Dave's banging away on his BlackBerry. And we're sitting at Starbucks, and he's like, all right, dude, ask me anything you want. And he's probably thinking, I'm going to go, all right, so in derivative deals, ABC, WXYZ, and he's going to rifle off some crappy textbook answer, and he's going to be over it, and then he's going to be off the hook, check the box on the HR form, handled. And I said, fully not caring about my job at this point at all, how come everybody says you're the man, you make all this money, you're one of the most powerful partners here, but you're never in the office? And he pauses like he just lost his ball in Brick Breaker. Those of you who have BlackBerries know what the fuck I'm talking about, right? And he sets his BlackBerry down hard, like, and he leans forward and he's like, do people really say that? And of course, at this point, I'm like backtracking as fast as I can. Oh, maybe, I don't know. I mean, I heard that somewhere. And I'm thinking, this is how I get fired at Starbucks in front of like 300 people in Manhattan, and just have to call my parents like, hey, can I come home forever? Is the basement still free? And he leans forward and tells me, well, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you why I'm never in the office. Because as lawyers, right, we're supposed to bill hours. So it's a mystery that nobody's in the office 24/7. Before I tell you what he said, let me tell you this. About a week prior to that, I thought I'd be a big baller and bring a girl into my office on Saturday night, because you can get into World Financial Center 24/7. So I show up with her. She's a guest, right, of me. I figure it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, Saturday night. It's going to look so badass. I got a view of Manhattan from my office. My office mate's not there. I'll just tell her the whole office is mine. I got a bottle of something in my drawer. This is going to be sweet. So I roll in, the elevator doors open, and I see everyone that I work with, and all the lights are on. 1 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. So I do what you all would do, and I got the hell out of there before anybody knew I showed up to give me any work. And I ran home. I'd like to say that there was some happy ending to that story, but there's not. I just literally just ran home. She's probably still in the office. And I noticed that everyone was there, and it just made no sense to me. And I thought, what the hell? I left at like 4. So on Tuesday, when it was safe and clear, I asked one of the senior associates, what's the deal? How come everybody was there so late? And he goes, well, what night was that? Saturday. Oh man, we're always there on Saturday at 1 o'clock in the morning. So here's everyone that I work with, sans Dave, working in the office till 1 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday night. Apparently something regular. Dave, however, 1 p.m. on a Tuesday, not in the office. So he leans forward and says, I'll tell you why I'm never there, Jordan. Because I bring in all the deals. I bring in all the business for this firm. Me sitting in this office billing hours, it's a waste of time. Sure, we bill out $1,000 an hour. It's a Wall Street firm. But my time is worth more than that. And this blew my freaking not quite teenage mind, right? I'm like 22, 24 maybe. And I just can't believe that someone's time would ever be worth that amount of money. And he says, look, if I bring in $1 million law deal, and it takes maybe several dozen hours, do the math. And I did. And it changed the way that I look at work forever. Because to me, this makes no sense. You're billing hours. This is how we make. And Dave he was from Brooklyn and he had a tan. So I believed that man because he knew something we did not know. Now, most of the guys I knew at work were sleeping under their desk. They were trying to outwork each other. They were undercutting each other. There were people there from other countries who left their families in frickin' India and Pakistan and Mexico and Canada, other exotic places, and they had nothing to do but work. And that wasn't me. I was trying to get by unnoticed and enjoy New York a little bit. And I certainly wasn't the smartest one there. Now, a lot of you can't maybe identify with that because this room's loaded with geniuses, I think. Although I've met some of you last night, so there are definitely exceptions to that. But I knew that I couldn't outwork everybody. I knew that wasn't going to happen. And I knew that I wasn't the most talented guy in the room. So I knew that I was going to get fired at some point. It was only a matter of time till they found out I was the exception, I shouldn't have been hired, and I should not be there anymore. And I know, by the way, that's called imposter syndrome. I know a lot of you probably still feel that way about your job right now. You see a lot of head shaking in the audience, and now they're looking around like, I hope nobody saw me shake my head. And so that's when I realized, look, Dave wasn't the smoothest, he wasn't the hardest working guy. He was just the most well-connected lawyer in the whole firm. And he was compensated as such. His relationships with other people were what brought value to the business. He had the rarest skill set in the firm. And that's when I realized this really sunk in. In order to succeed inside the system, I had to work outside the system. And for many of us, what that means is that the strength of our relationships directly leads to flexibility and prosperity, and opportunity for that matter. How many of you found your jobs because you uploaded a resume to monster.com or something like that? And how many of you found what you're doing right now because of a connection or a relationship that you had by chance? Many more hands. The rest of you are playing Candy Crush. Cool, I totally get it. And there's a chance that a handful of you out there actually like networking or relationship development, because networking is a dirty word now. And the rest of you pretty much hate it. Feels smarmy. You don't even bring business cards because you just feel like a D-bag handing them out. You know no one's going to call you. You just feel like it's just instant rejection. You're just handing some. And just like that, you feel terrible handing them out. Instant rejection. So today I'm going to tell you how to hustle opportunities, how to kick your competitors' butts, if you have competitors, by leveraging relationships they can only friggin' dream about, and how to turn something most of us dread into one of your strongest competitive advantages. And that's also what this challenge is designed to do, by the way. It's designed to get you out of your shell, outside your comfort zone, creating relationships in a non-smarmy and very authentic way that doesn't leave you needing a shower after the interaction. And we've all heard it's not what you know, but who you know. And usually when we hear that, we say it with some sort of stank on it, right? A little bit of disdain. Ugh, it's all about who you know. Anybody who's lost a promotion to somebody else who is better connected hates that idea, hates that reality that it's about who you know. But I'm going to tell you right now, this is a strength. Because again, it's the secret game being played around you. You want to win that. You want to be in that. If you ignore it, you lose. And those of us that run companies, and I know there's tons of entrepreneurs out there, even though you never use that word because that's also kind of, salesy. Even those of you who run businesses know that the most brilliant idea can fail if you don't have the right people around you to help it take off. Look at this conference. Imagine if Dave tried to do it himself. I mean, you can laugh at that idea. That's ridiculous. Team is what makes it happen. Everybody knows that. It's self-evident. But somehow when it's our business, we don't even think about it. We don't even think about people outside our business helping us succeed. And when I first started networking and relationship development, I thought you had to be part of this secret club. You were born into it. You married into it. Your parents had some awesome connections, some amazing connections. You went to a private school with a little, like a badge thing sewn onto a blue blazer. By the way, if you can marry into it, highly recommended. But if you're not born into it, your parents, or if you are born into it rather, your parents had to do the same thing that I'm going to teach you today. And if your parents didn't do that, you've got to teach it to your kids. Or they're going to be starting from ground zero. Nobody wants that for their kids. With intentional application of these skills, and this is the good news, with intentional application of these skills and the challenge, you will get better at this than somebody who had it all handed to them on a plate. And I don't think I need to reach too far to find somebody who was born with every opportunity and still screwed it all up. I think everybody has that guy. Everybody has that guy or girl in their childhood that did that. You can create a better network than those of us that were born into it. What people don't realize is that relationship development and networking is a way of being. It's a set of habits. It's not something you turn off. It's not something you even have to turn on, for that matter. It's not handing out cards. It's not hustling. It's not inauthentic reactions, getting people to do things for you that you want that don't help them. Even though I just moved to San Jose about a month ago, I know more people there than a lot of the folks that have lived there for years. And the reason is because this never turns off. And once you see the matrix, an analogy I know you all understand, which is great, you never have to look outside it. There's no going back. The skills work for you. And everyone has this capacity. Who here's an introvert? Yeah, like the rest of you are just not raising your hands because you're such introverts. You're like, no, I'm not doing anything right now. He might pick someone. It's my worst nightmare. Not doing it. I'm also an introvert. I know no one believes that, but it's true. You no longer have a medical excuse for why you can't be a little bit more social than you are now. Being an introvert just means you need alone time. Doesn't mean you're allergic to other humans. Sorry. But this is what's designed to get you out of that. Your network, your relationships, this is your job search army. This is your business development army if you run your own business. And it keeps opportunity flowing into your life at an unstoppable clip. Those of you who are married probably met your significant other through a relationship that previously existed. We already asked the job question, how you found your current line of work, probably through a relationship that already existed. At least in most industries, that's true. And Dave, by the way, had pure job security and stability. Dave, the guy who hired me, not Dave Kennedy. I can't speak to his job stability or his relationship stability. But Dave, as our firm sank into the recession of 2007, he walked into another firm as a partner, while all those people that were there at 1 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday night, they were punished by the recession. They are now all retired, even when some of them were 40. And I don't think it's because they crush it. I think it's because they can't get jobs. He walked out of a sinking firm right into a partnership. He probably got a raise because of his relationships. It is pure job security. And I'll ask, why many of you are here. When I give this talk to quote-unquote entrepreneurs, especially in Silicon Valley, most of us are not here because we want lifetime corporate employment at a Fortune 500 company. Most of us are not here because of that. And 20 years ago, nobody thought our job security would be limited by recessions and manufacturing. And when I give this talk in Detroit to a bunch of dudes with beards that have weather on their faces from hammering steel from cars, I don't have to explain that point. I don't have to belabor that one. They didn't have the relationships to make it through. And even in the most downturn economy, you can succeed if you have the right relationships and safety net around you. My company, The Art of Charm, should probably get that right, started in 2007 in the midst of a huge recession because all we did was leverage relationships and help other people. That's right, we helped other people. How does that figure into relationships? Again, it's not by asking for what you want. It's about figuring out how to help others, and I'll get into that here in a second. The first bit of homework that I'm going to give you, I know, right? Come to Derbycon. It'll be fun, they said. Now you have homework. Don't worry, it's in the challenge. You don't need to write it down, but if you do, you get a head start. And this sounds impossible, but what you're going to do is make a list of pretty much everybody that you know. From your mom's hairdresser as a kid to the kids you played soccer with in elementary school. And this isn't designed to get you reaching out to them or selling them computer security services or, social engineering penetration testing or that contraption thing that you built that doesn't even work that well, but I'm probably going to need in a few minutes. This is to get you looking at your relationships in an entirely different way, because whenever I talk about this subject, people always say, well, I don't know anyone. I don't have any connections. I don't know anybody of value. This is pointless. I'm not high level. Insert objection here. But this is no joke. I mean, your mom's hairdresser, your friggin' dentist. When I moved to Los Angeles a long time ago, about 6 years ago now, I had a toothache, like the first week I was there. And if any of you have ever had a toothache, it's like the worst pain. You can't think. You definitely can't work. You certainly can't talk into a microphone, which is what I do all day. And so I needed a dentist, and I needed it fast. And I kept calling everyone in the Yellow Pages or on the internet who uses does that even still exist? And they all said, sorry, I'm full, I'm booked, I can't help you, go to the ER, go to the ER, go to the ER. You know what happens when you go to the ER with a toothache? They tie a string around it and they slam the door. That's what happens. So I'm not doing that. That's not happening. So I post on Facebook, the last bastion of opportunity. And I said, I need a dentist in LA now. Who can help me? Somebody I don't know, we all have those on Facebook, replies and says, oh, my aunt's a dentist in LA, I'll give her a call. He sets me up with his aunt. I have crap insurance at this point in my life, by the way. She has me do a little root canal, doesn't overcharge me, and I'm like, I am more thankful than you can possibly imagine. I can't wait to tell this guy how much I appreciate this. I send him a message. He writes back, great. I said, if there's ever anything I can do for you, let me know.
And of course, the first thing he says is, well, I'm a graphic designer of mediocre talent level, and I would love to work for you. And I said, I don't have any opportunity here, thanks, and now I just feel guilty, so I close the window and forget about it. Well, a couple of days later, a friend of mine says, wow, I really need a graphic designer. Every designer I know has crapped out on me. They don't even need to be that good. I just need someone who's going to show up to the job. So I float them his portfolio, and he gets a job for $80,000 a year as a full-time graphic designer because he helped me find a dentist on Facebook. Let that sink in for a second. If he had planned to get a job as a graphic designer through one of my connections, it would not have happened that way. He only thought about how he could help me. That's it. And that is as simple as it gets, and that's the secret to networking. Only think about what's in it for them. You just don't know who you can help and who might be able to help you. But it only works if you're only thinking about their needs and not just filtering for your own. If you're only filtering for your own, you don't jump on opportunities like that ever. Is it always like this? No, that's a really convenient example, right? But it's a numbers game. How do you increase your odds in a numbers game? You keep playing. You increase the numbers. You need to be the guy or gal who's just apparently getting lucky just constantly, hit after hit. And it's not about money, obviously, as per my dentist example. Social capital is more powerful than money, and people don't know what social capital is, do they? Money was invented, little history lesson, because barter became difficult over distance and time. And pardon my pacing, I'm trying to make a little bit of FaceTime with everybody, and I got this big thing in my way here. So hello, yes, Candy Crush, level 472. Yeah, I just saw that game yesterday. I just learned how to play it. I'm not getting it. I will never produce anything again if I get it. 300 years ago, it was hard to move 50 goats 500 miles. So you got money. Money is great, however. Most of us enjoy money. We should hang out. But barter is more efficient than money. Much more. Because the value on each side is greater. And money is perfectly replaceable. If you're only as good as your checkbook, you are perfectly replaceable. And as people get more successful, money becomes less valuable. If you have more of it, the value goes down. Once you reach a certain level of success, even money is not very effective. And that starts much earlier than you think. At that point, what you need to increase your personal value, your social capital, are connections, even if you think they're not that high level. If I'm looking for your network and not your checkbook, you're much more of a rare commodity because your network is unique to you. It's the only thing, unfortunately, that's really unique about you. We are not special snowflakes. However, your network, when you diagram it, looks a lot like a snowflake. And that is about as unique as you get. You can have a bank account with a zero balance. If you have a great network, you can offer something to somebody with $100 million. So would you rather be somebody who's irreplaceable? Or would you rather be somebody who's only as good as your checkbook? Now that we know why that's important, let's talk about who's in your network and how to level up. Business fundamentally is people selling things to people they know. Generally people that they like. People do business with people they know and that they like. That's why country clubs exist at all in the first place. There's no other reason. Golf only exists because of this. And everyone's heard that old adage, you only go as high as your 5 closest friends. I'm not saying ditch your friends and build better ones that have more money or whatever. This isn't a motivational feel-good session. I'll spare you. But networking is one of the best ways to make sure that you're constantly surrounding yourself with high-value individuals, high-quality people as much as you can. And now, I know what some of you are thinking. This is not some game that you play that you secretly hate just because you want the spoils. It's about helping other people, and it's important to me personally for that reason. I like people, believe it or not. I know some of you do not, however. Humor me on this one. But if somebody doesn't have integrity, do not build your business, do not build your network around them. It's also important because unless you've been very intentional about this process for a long time, your immediate surroundings and social circle are probably filled with a lot of mediocrity. People who are more than satisfied with mediocrity. And if you surround yourself with high achievers, especially in your industry, you will crush. These skills are essential in any career, whether you work for a huge corporation or whether you work for yourself. Everything is a business, and people buy you. They buy into your vision. Go ahead, Chris. We got a photographer. And they buy into your network. And it's easier to sell yourself to people that already know you. You can't get there by yourself, and you don't have to. Now, you might have to move to make it happen. I moved to San Francisco. I knew that's where my connections were. You don't have to move to Ohio. Nobody should punish themselves like that. But you really... Wow, there's a lot more people here from Ohio than I thought. Sorry about that. Most people never like that little joke. I'm going to keep that one in there. Sorry. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. You got to ask yourself, how can I get people emotionally involved in my success? People will want to help you, and they will, if you can get them emotionally involved by helping them achieve their goals and get them excited. They'll want to do the same for you. It's about reciprocity. It's simple reciprocity. This is something that top performers rely on all the time. Look at charities. They're loaded with well-connected people. They're loaded with well-to-do people. That's why people get involved with them a lot of the time, in fact. Some of us like helping people. Others of us are there to meet other people who can. The number one rule of networking is build it before you need it. You have to dig that well before you're thirsty. Networking once you need something, whether it's a job or a dentist, is not effective. How many of you have ever thought, all right, I'm going to start building relationships as soon as I launch this product, as soon as I get my website up, as soon as I insert other excuse here to procrastinate actually building the relationships we need. Tons of people do that. It's one of the most common mistakes because we don't have a framework for how this works. But who would you rather help? Someone who's known you for years, months, and has helped you with a few things here and there, or somebody who cold calls you out of the blue and asks you for a favor? When is the best time to network? When is the best time to put a spare tire in the trunk of your car? Networking when you need it is not effective, and it is too late. Everyone who works at AOC got their job through a connection. In fact, I have statistics to prove this. Internet, 3% of jobs. Nobody looks at their inbox. Recruiters, top pros only. 80% find their job through their network. Even Monster.com will admit this. People do not find jobs through that site. They'll give you a number. They will not give you a percentage. And there's a good reason for that. But what's the currency of networking? How do we do it? How do we increase our odds? Generosity is the currency of networking. Many of you probably heard always be closing. This is always be giving. This is a constant process of giving and offering help. It's not a Rolodex full of business cards. It's about action. Something small on your end may be huge for someone else. Dentist, Facebook, example and point. How many of you have ever had to ask for a client, an offer, a job, a gig, a recommendation from college? Did that feel awkward? Was that awful? Was it the most painful thing you ever had to do? Waddle into your professor's office and ask? Waddle into your boss's office and ask? Ask a friend to hook you up with somebody? Would that have felt the same way if you'd spent weeks helping that person achieve a goal on their end? Absolutely not. Now, networking is a pie. Or it's not a pie, sorry. Networking is not a pie. Everybody awake? Networking is not a pie that runs out. It's not a pie that gets eaten and used. It's a muscle that gets stronger with use. The more that you create relationships, the stronger your network becomes. And most people don't understand this, and this is why they fail. If you hoard it, it dies on the vine. And you don't just accept generosity, you ask for it. It's okay if people say no. This challenge is designed to get people to say yes, and even more, to say no, in a way that doesn't crush the ego and soul. You will get nowhere if you wait. If you're not as comfortable asking for help as you are receiving it and giving it, you're only working half of the equation. When I applied to law school, I didn't get in. Surprise, surprise. Must have been that middle school GPA coming around to bite me in the butt. And a friend of mine said, well, why don't you write them a letter and I'll sign it? I already got in. I'll say you're a good fit. I don't have a lot of sway, but we'll try it. I wrote a letter on a whim, got in to the University of Michigan Law School. So in other words, I got into one of the best law schools in the United States just because I asked. I had already gotten denied from that same school. Let that sink in for a second. Most of us here are afraid to ask. I was always afraid to ask. I still have fear before I ask. And I do it anyway because I've seen the results firsthand. Relationships cannot be overstated. And some of you probably saw my bio in the program, those of you who read it while you were sober. And you know that I've been kidnapped 2 times. Twice. 3rd time's the charm. That's why I don't travel much anymore. But when I was 25 years old, I was teaching English in Serbia, not Siberia. Serbia. It's a republic in the former Yugoslavia.
That's okay. This one's a little louder. Wow. All right. Everybody's awake now. It's like a baton relay, only I'm the only guy running. In 2005, I was 25 years old. I was in Serbia, and I had to register with the government. This is a former socialist country, so you have to register with the police when you live there. What that means is you have to tell the police where you live. They don't have one of those constitutional freedom things going on. And I wanted to live with a local Serbian person or live on my own, and you're not allowed to do that there. You have to be hosted by family. And at that time, foreigners weren't really welcome at all. They were definitely not welcome to live there long term. And I had a job teaching English on the payroll of the United States Department of Defense. It's a weird sort of circular thing, doesn't warrant a story, doesn't really look good on paper to the Serbian police. They kept tabs on me a lot to make sure that I wasn't a spy. I'd like to think they did that to everyone, but now I'm not so sure. But I really wanted to live on my own, not living in some old lady's basement with mold. I learned how to say mold. It was one of the first words I learned in Serbian was mold, because I had a lot of it in my bedroom. And I conceived of a plan to have my friends attest to and verify that I was living with them in Belgrade. So I'd register with one friend. Government officials would spot check, get suspicious because I didn't have anything there, and then I'd have to register with another friend and move. And this went on for a while until one day, one of the detectives knocked on my friend's door and said, "Where's his room? Where does he sleep? Where's his backpack? Where's his suitcase? Where are his belongings?" So I get a call on like a Tuesday at 1 o'clock in the morning. "Hey man, you gotta move like now." And I said, "No problem, I don't even have any stuff there." And he said, no, you have to go to the police station and tell them that you don't live here because they're looking for you right now. And normally this is the kind of thing I would just straighten out. But Serbia's not the kind of place where you walk into a police station and go, "Hey, I heard you guys are looking for me. What can I do for you?" Especially when you're on the payroll of the Department of Defense. So state security now has me on their radar because the police there are completely inept. They take bribes and hand out fake traffic tickets. Weeks later, I'm at a huge music festival on an island that had a Turkish fortress. Pretty badass. Like 100,000+ people. It's called Exit, if anybody's into that stuff. And there's a black Jeep rolling around. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning at this point. I've been up for 2 straight days, drinking lots of coffee, of course. And I see them shining lights on people. And you don't have to watch too many James Bond flicks before you realize that a Jeep with tinted windows and government plates is a bad sign. So immediately, of course, as soon as that hits me, I'm like, I'm out of here. So I start walking as fast as I can, and the light shines on me. And I'm walking as fast as I can without running and being really obvious that I'm trying to get the hell out of there. And I look back, and there's no one else there. I can't even pretend that they were looking for someone else. I mean, I am straight up with one friend, otherwise totally alone. My friend stops. And to make matters worse, he's got a little bit of what you might call a checkered past. And his father had organized crime connections back in the old Yugoslavia, not the new one. So he's basically persona non grata in the country, and I just happen to be standing 10 feet away from him. So these guys, these state security officers, which by the way have diplomatic immunity from the local law because they're usually war criminals from Bosnia, who are above prosecution so that they don't have to prosecute their own fighters. So these are bad news. These guys are PTSD. They stop us. Their eyes are red. they're super high on like meth they brewed in their bathtub or something like that. And well, this is a family audience, so I am very frightened. And they're asking for my passport, and I'm like, I don't carry my passport. And they're like, you know it's against the law to not have your passport? And I'm like, yeah, I guess I maybe did know that, but nobody carries their passport. It's ridiculous. And they go, tell me the truth, leaning in like 3 inches from my face. Tell me the truth. Can you walk around the United States in your country without a frickin' passport? Tell me the truth. And I said, yes, I can walk around the United States without a passport. And the guy turns to his friend, and in Serbian, which they don't know I can understand, he goes, well, I guess they really are truly free over there. Jesus. And I'm thinking, great, oh good, they like the United States. Wrong. The reason they probably lived where they lived is because good old Clinton had like blown up their hometown or something like that, or helped Albanians to do it. So I'm like, I don't need any part of this. I'm 25 years old. I have no idea what's going on. I barely remember the 90s for multiple reasons. And they're talking about how America is the enemy and they bombed our country, and I'm facing the idea of getting pistol whipped in front of now an audience of like 20,000 people. So I decided to do what I do best, which is start talking. And of course I'm like, let's make a cute joke right now. Look, I don't have any bombs. I'm just an English teacher. They did not think that was cute. So I realized this is now becoming kind of a serious situation. This is not Ferris Bueller's Day Off. The key is to get them to see me as a real person, not just like ambiguous American first one they've ever met in their whole life, right? So they're driving this black Jeep, and they're like, get on the car. And I'm like, oh, they have an English, their little accent. They mean get in the car. So I go to the door, and they're like, no, get on the car. And I'm like, I'll just trying to get in the back seat here. No. And I noticed the back seat has like rifles and guns spread out all over it and a bag of Doritos, which is totally weird. And they're like, no, get on the car. Stand on the running boards on the side of the car and hold on to the sunroof. And I'm thinking, oh, this is either going to be, I literally said to my friend, this is either going to be awful or the greatest friggin' story ever. And it's kind of both. So we get on the side running boards, and now I'm like, oh, that was a mistake, because now we're going like 40 miles an hour down the highway. And I thought about tucking and rolling, but 40 miles an hour outside the car, it looks a lot faster than it does when you're inside the car. Besides, I have nowhere to go with my broken leg and my 2 broken arms after I did that anyway. I mean, I'm not even in my hometown. I don't know anyone. What am I going to do? So I stay on the car. And obviously it looked pretty ridiculous because cars are honking. There's a bus driver and a couple dudes on motorbikes that are like, yeah! Oh, right, because I'm holding a beer and they're throwing popcorn out of the sunroof, and they're making us catch it in our mouths, or try to anyway, which is, by the way, impossible on the highway at 40 miles an hour. And how do we get the popcorn, you ask? They made us rob a popcorn vendor, but I only have a certain amount of time to tell this story, so we'll skip right through that. Anyway, first of all, I'm like, this is really difficult, and this beer, I'm going to spill it, and, I might need another one because this popcorn's really salty. And then I hear flashing lights and a siren, and I think, oh, God, thank God. We're going to get pulled over, and I'm just going to tell them exactly what happened. I think this microphone's going out. And then we'll be fine. They'll cut us loose after we tell them what's going on. And I knew we were in trouble because they refused to stop. They unroll the window and they're like, nah. And the cops behind us turn the lights off and pull back to the side of the road. And now I'm like, okay, I'm screwed. This is bad news. They're above the law, literally. So 15 minutes later, we pull into this secluded neighborhood, down a road into a shuttered up old bar. And I'm starting to get jitters even telling this story. And I know it's getting serious. It's not harmless fun anymore. This isn't like scare the tourists. Once they took us inside and we were cut off from the rest of the world, we're on our own, and now I'm legitimately scared. Legit scared. I haven't been this scared since prom 98. Again, another story, limited time. So he's yelling at me and pushing me around, and they're kicking the chair that I'm on because they sit us down in this like dank basement. And they're like, you don't care about this place. You're not here teaching refugees. We're going to destroy you. And they're literally saying this because that's like, they learned English from like crappy VHS tapes. So I'm like, how do I read between the lines on this one? Meanwhile, kind of wetting myself. And they're punching my friend in the face hard because he's got a big mouth. He's all like, you don't know who my dad is. And they're like, yeah, don't care, not interested. And I'm like, guys, I'm just an English teacher. Constantly, yes, you're a spy. You're a spy. And I'm like, no, man, I was on my way to Lipa, this nice restaurant in the city where I was, and they've got the best food anywhere in the city. That's all I'm doing here. And he gets incredulous. And he goes, you obviously don't know anything about this country. Everyone knows Lipa does not have the best food in the city. And I'm like, maybe, but what about Znak Pitanya in Belgrade? Desperately clinging to any hope I have of survival. And he laughs and he goes, you don't know squat about Serbian food. You need to go to this other place, his name I can't remember, because I had other things going on at the time, before you can possibly be qualified to talk about this. And it's funny, because about this story, I'm like, what was the name of that restaurant? I gotta try that place next time. So I ask what he orders when he goes there, and he tells me exactly what to get, and changes the energy of the whole conversation. Meanwhile, bear in mind, my friend is still getting punched in the face repeatedly, like 10 feet away. At the Art of Charm, we call this changing the frame of the conversation. It goes from him, interrogating me, to us both on somewhat equal footing. We're talking about Serbian food and culture. And I kept behaving like I'm not in trouble. And I'm like, hey, later on, when we get out of here, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, I'm going to check out that restaurant. So I'm setting that anchor like, hey, any minute now, you're going to let me go, and we're going to have a bite to eat. Sounds good, right? And I'm thinking I could really use a drink about now. Despite being about 8:30 a.m., it was kind of like this, only the booze was better. And I'm asking him advice and where to go and what to eat and where to hang out. This, by the way, is called the Benjamin Franklin effect. Ask people for advice, and they start to have a mutual respect for you. It's also in The Challenge. But Benjamin Franklin famously did this. Anybody who's read Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, it's a popular story in that book. And then we're starting to talk about homebrew liquor. They call it rakia. And it's the only thing Serbian people love more than talking about drinking, by the way, is drinking. So like I said, I'm like, I need a drink right about now. And he gets up, and he's so chuffed. He gets up, storms out. And that made me really nervous. But I'm just, at this point, also really glad that I'm not getting punched in the face like my friend. And sometimes the unknown is scarier than the known, And at this point, I'm looking around and my imagination's like filling in the blanks because there's all these wires and pipes sticking out, and I'm just kind of imagining them, clamping them to various parts of my body. And suddenly I see him coming back, and he's got like a club in his hand, and I'm like, oh my God, okay, this is do or die, right? I gotta jump this guy. So I'm not handcuffed or restrained in any way. So I get up and I'm like, all right, assume some kind of karate pose that's not super threatening and get ready to make your move. And as he gets closer, I'm thinking, okay, I've got one chance to do this. This is my one chance for survival. And as he gets within probably, I would say, bum rush distance, by the way, he's at least twice my size. This is a terrible, terrible strategy. But, when you're up in a corner, and as soon as he gets close enough, I see, oh my God, he's got a bottle of rakia. He's got a bottle of liquor. And he sits down and he pours us a couple of glasses of this bathtub brew booze. Now we're really cranking. My friend's still getting punched in the face. Me and him, we're talking about food, women, politics, having a heated debate about where to get the late night street food in different cities in Serbia. And I feel for my friend at this point, but I'm just focused on the situation at hand right now. I'm like, sorry, better you than me, dude. That'll teach you. And I feel like it's like the airplane oxygen mask where you help yourself before you help the person next to you. And after a while, the other officer says in Serbian, he goes, what are you doing over there, having a party? His friend's got a big mouth. I'm going to shut it for him. And that worries me a lot because I still think this is going to go sideways, right? Any minute here, they're going to decide, okay, we're done. Let's off these dudes. So I tell him, look, man, I'm sick. I need water. Like, we've been out all night, been out all day. I need water. I'm getting woozy. This is terrible. We're drinking so much. He goes, okay, hold on. So he gets up, silence. I'm afraid to move at this point. The other guy gets up, and after what seems like an eternity, I hear doors closing and then a car starting, and I know they're gone. They're gone. So I'm like, oh my God, dude, get up. Get up. My friend's groggy. He's slow. He just got his butt kicked. We run as far as we can. He's like basically crippled, so I'm half carrying him. We go to a restaurant, and the waitress says, hi, how can I? And then just immediately turns away. And I'm like, oh, we must look like crap. And by the way, we were covered in blood, dirt, and popcorn. And the regular police come, arrest us again, take us to the police station where I try to explain in broken, drunk Serbian what happened. And they're like, the police did this to you. We're the police. What are you talking about? Finally, the captain calls his girlfriend on the phone, who's a German teacher and an English teacher. I explained the whole thing to her. She happens to know my boss, my actual English teaching boss. And now she believes every word that I'm saying because she's heard about me. My relationships are doing the talking for me right now. They cut us loose. And honestly, I think the only thing that saved my life and the life of my friend at this point in time is surely the relationships that I had built right when I moved to Serbia. The friends we had in common, the professional relationships and the personal relationships. She wasn't buying my story until she knew who I was. She's embarrassed. We're walking home, covered still in dirt, blood, and popcorn. So as you can see, rapport skills aren't just good for building connections, but in this case, they actually saved my life. And they're the reason I'm talking to you here today. That's my time. Thank you, everybody.